what they had in Axl and Slash, and they certainly made a big difference in the rock and roll world.
Welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode number 530. My name is Brando. Welcome to the podcast, a music icon. I think that's so fair to say. Derek Shulman, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing pretty well, thank you, considering my age and my situation. I'm fine, all good, thank you.
Age. I don't want to, maybe I should reveal because if you're watching this on YouTube, because I do audio and video, you might see my birthday sign behind me. I just turned as we're taping this.
Oh yes, I didn't. Yes, wow, happy birthday.
Thank you. I turned. I'm not doing this to get happy birthday wishes. I'm not like that. But it's my wife decided to decorate my home studio, and my birthday was yesterday. I just turned 42 as we're taping this, and now I'm just leaving them up because my son, who I warned you about, who may interrupt the beginning of this interview, he loves his numbers and his letters. So he's like PIR. So let me leave them up. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm not some ego at having like a birthday week or a birthday month. My son likes letters. My wife designed this. Just so I feel old at 42. This is a
Well,
this is a nice little segue into everything because you have
well,
lived quite a life. You've lived quite a life.
yes, I certainly have, and I wake up in the morning and say thank God for that.
So I this is all down finally in a memoir, Giant Steps: My Improbable Journey from Stage Lights to Executive Heights. So I don't know if you hear him screaming in the background, Harrison.
Harrison, yeah.
How do I tell him? How do I even begin to start the Derek Shulman story when I tell him that eventually? What,
Let me think here. Tell him that this old guy who's living in Manhattan, who's a British, was a British singer and an executive, that to be a good boy and to be um, good to everyone and also for his parents to be good to him.
so you're in Manhattan right now? Whereabouts?
Yeah, Upper West Side here.
Oh, okay. As
Yeah.
I told you before, I'm in Queens. One of these days, because I told you I'm in a home studio when my son is old enough, I want to have people come to the house and interview them. So maybe in the future, if you come back on, I'll invite you over. You go hang out with Harrison, and we'll do an interview. But I
Absolutely.
I digress. So if you're unfamiliar with Derek, I mean you should be. Maybe it depends on your age. He's putting out Giant Steps, an eye-opening memoir that traces your extraordinary journey from music from the 1960s to pop fame with Simon Dupree and the Big Sound to cult status as the frontman of a one of the pioneers of aggressive rock, Gentle Giant. And then you really had like a second career, like which arguably even more successful as a record executive, A&R, signing acts like Bon Jovi, Dream Theater, Slipknot. You dealt with ACDC and Bad Company and Black your history goes back so far. So when did you decide to write this book? Because this must have been swimming in your head for a while, all these stories.
Well, the stories that have been swimming in my head because they're real and they're
Yeah.
all part of my experiences. Um, I was cajoled by a friend of mine and friend of ours, my wife's and ours, who was the book editor of the New York Times, a guy called Jack Schwartz. And I tell him, we get together for dinner occasionally, and I tell him stories about, I remember when Elton John was Reg, and he was in the band. And then I tell him stories about being on tour with Sabbath, and then stories about this and that, which is in the book. And he'd say, you should really write a book about this. And I said, Jack, I'm not a writer. I've been an executive. I've been a musician. But he said, all you have to do is sit down for a couple of hours, put that aside. And I said, and this went on for a couple of years, and like before 2000, it was around before COVID. Um, and he cajoled me into saying, "Look, just put aside, an hour or two, put everything and start writing," which I did before COVID in like 2019. But honestly, I was not very good at putting that time aside. I'd pick up the phone and I'd get sidetracked by we're doing a remix of this, and so I wrote, maybe like about 50 pages
Mm,
And that took me like 6 months, and then COVID hit, and I got COVID right at the beginning, very early on. I mean, I was one of the first to get it, and
mm,
I dodged a bullet effectively. And I was isolated in my bedroom for 6 weeks. Um, and all I had was my TV with Cuomo saying you're going to be okay, and but my laptop, and I felt lousy, but nevertheless, I thought, well, let me just start. I had nothing else to do except moan and groan. So
mm.
I moaned and groaned into the laptop and started rewriting the book. Um, and that's how I got back into it.
Did you find as you were spending the time, did you find yourself, was it difficult at that point to tell your story, or was it starting to flow once you found the time?
Um, well, actually, all what I did was I put the points which are very very memorable um, in various sections of my life. Just these these bullet points, if you like, that are sort of milestones in my life. And then I started going through how to describe them. And to be honest with you, the beginning of the book was when I was feeling pretty lousy from COVID. And in fact, that's why it kind of starts with a bit of well, not bit, it was a bad situation where my father died in my arms, and that's when I had COVID. And
Oh.
it's also, it also affected the rest of my life, both, so mentally health wise, because that gave me some kind of PTSD of health anxieties, and also
Mm,
knowing that I should be more aware about how he was a smoker and a drinker, but also
mm.
a fantastic father and a great musician, but how to live my life because of that situation that happened, that he would drop dead in my arms and my brother's arms.
Oh my God. I'm so sorry that that happened. You know, that's a,
It's,
so it must have been, I'm assuming it was a cathartic then to start getting these things down for your life and to change your life, with get your life down on paper and also change your life in reality. So it must have been quite the change for you because it's got to be a memoir is a daunting task. I can't even imagine because it's like, are you at this point in your life where you could tell your stories? Are you, is there any sort of hesitation where, because you're still a busy guy, you know,
yeah.
that's it. Is there any sort of hesitation to be like, okay, am I almost putting a period at the end of my life, or no, this is just I'm getting this out here so everybody knows about me before it's too late.
Well, there is that. I mean, but no, I never really thought of that. It was certainly the what I told you first of all, that I was cajoled by someone who I admired as a person who unfortunately passed away himself of COVID a couple of years ago, which is terrible to say. But cajoled into start to write. And even, I was the lyric writer in a band, so I was a decent wordsmith, if you like, not speaking because no one could understand me, uh,
Hmm.
but certainly writing wise, I kind of liked it and enjoyed putting words together. And I figured during that period where there was a lockdown, I'd start putting it together, even though yeah, still have things to do and want to do, but you know, the fact that he found it interesting as a journalist, I figured, okay, well, maybe a couple of other people would find it interesting too.
What were the most fun stories, I guess, to kind of pivot? Because you were talking about COVID and death. Let's pivot to the goods and some fun stuff.
Thank you.
And because I want people to read and go through all the emotions, And I will say, I got an email this morning that we're sending you the book today. Like, the interview's today, but I'm pretty sure send it
Yeah.
to me. But I got to watch the trailer and some excerpts, so I mean, I got a little bit of a taste of every, the cool stuff. So what were you really excited to get down on pen to paper, and you can't wait for people to read about your story?
Um, well, across the board, it's about music. It's about being authentic. It's about being surrounded by music all of my life. And the fact that I was lucky enough, I have been lucky enough to be both a musician presenting myself on stage and writing and being creative in both the as a musician and as on the other side of the fence, I say executive, but as a record guy, trying to keep that authenticity, if you like, intact and being integral as in that part of my life as well. So, but keeping that as uh, as authentic as I could, and helping other artists on the Darth Vader side, if you like,
Sure.
um, to to be as being able to help them become as big as they could, uh, giving them my experiences from my prior life, if you like.
What I'm really wondering about before we go into the A&R stuff, because I'm really curious about what you brought to Bon Jovi and to Slipknot. That's so cool, and it
Okay.
just shows you the Swiss Army knife of talent and genres that you have, and that kind of goes back to. So I want to go back before we go forward.
Right.
Opening for Black Sabbath. I didn't know that you opened for Black Sabbath. That seems like it would be a almost a conflict of sounds, but it wasn't. So can you talk about that experience?
So we had the same management, and that was our first tour of America. So literally before we went on, um, we announced, the whoever it was announced his Gentle Giant, there'd be a big boo. I mean, we had, but I generally across the board on that first tour, because we had been in the band, we were able to sort of before that, uh, you know, know how to sort of woo an audience who was who were antithetical against you. Been able, and we had been able to get them on our side at the end of the set for the most part. So, it was a tough tour, but nevertheless, it was a great tour because we were in front of 20,000 kids all over America. But that lasted until the end of the tour was the Hollywood Bowl show,
Hmm.
where again we were booed very heartily. And at the one point in the show, which is pretty well known, um, someone threw a firecracker, a cherry bomb on stage. And we did something that no band should ever do. We stopped playing. And it's a story which has been told over and over, but it's something that is indelible in my head, that something you should never do. But me and my brother Phil, who was in the band at that point, went up to the mic, and I kind of politely said, "Hey guys, this is really pretty uncool to do that. That's not. Listen, let us play our set." However, my brother Phil was a little more, a little less articulate, and basically said, "You guys are a bunch of C dot 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 TS." And that boo that went up was spectacular. I mean,
Hmm.
it was the most superb boo you could ever. And then we went back to our instruments and finished our set, and that was it for LA for that Sabbath show. But at the very same show, um, this story, I mean, because these are stories again which I had bullet points on that I had to tell because they were so funny, but
Hmm.
funny, but also things that you have to be there to experience. At their very same show, Tony Iommi, they were at that point in their careers, the Sabbath, they were doing. I mean, their level of debauchery was on 11. And Tony basically collapsed on stage, and the crowd thought, literally, and his guitar was feeding back. I mean, it was like, but the crowd were going apeshit. They thought it was part of the show.
Hmm.
A couple of minutes went by, 5 minutes went by, 7 minutes went by, and he was still like flat out. The roadies eventually brought him back up to life and propped him against the amp. But then they stopped the show, and that was it for them. So that was our Black Sabbath touring experience, but we were with the same management. So it was quite an experience, to be honest with you.
It sounds like it, and we'll get into my theme of the podcast later, but I mean, you may know Axel had things thrown at him on stage, and he stopped the show. That's happened, or he's just like, "You do it again, we're stopping the show." So I can understand that. I mean,
We
is
never,
that
but you know what, that's something we had never done. As you know, we had a history before. I was in a band that we were very popular in Europe,
mhm.
and we toured and toured, and our I guess our chops and understanding of an audience would generally come through, and be able to overcome any kind of situation that we were in at that point. But at that very point, our sort of our, our spirit broke, if you like.
Yeah, no, I can only imagine how tough that is, especially when you've already had success and you're like, wait, what's going on here? Did the I don't know if it would have happened given the level of debauchery of Sabbath at the time, but did they try to say, "Hey guys, we like you, keep doing what you're doing"? Did they show you any sort of support?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Okay,
We were friends. I mean,
cool.
oh yeah, we had the same manager, as I said, and we had, and we were friends. We loved we loved the group. I mean, they loved us. I mean, Ozzy, they used to stand at the side of the stage, and Ozzy, rest in peace. He used to say, "Man, you guys are so great. I wish you cut your tour. Come on tour with us everywhere." And having had that experience, it wouldn't be a very good idea. So
Right.
that tour morphed into the Jethro Tull tour as supporting them, and that was a lot better, different experience.
I gotcha. And before we do the flip to the A&R side, because all of this is such great a foundation to teach artists later on, which is just very rare. That's kind of what your story is about. Do you have any because it's topical and as you mentioned, rest in peace Ozzy. Do you have any specific or a very fun memory with him or a funny story that anything that sticks out when you think about Ozzy and a personal experience?
Well, yeah, there was one in particular where it's not a fun experience, but it was certainly one where I remember Ozzy uh, with our management company, and we had the same managers, and I found out that we were both getting ripped off. And we together with another couple of bands that they were handling. Edgar Broughton was one. I don't know whether you've ever heard of them, and the Groundhogs. We all got in a room together with the management, and I told them, I was told by our road manager who worked for the company that we were getting ripped off, but they were getting even more ripped off. Anyway, we had a meeting in their office in London. Excuse me. And Tony, who said that we heard that we're not getting what we're due. And in fact, from what we understood, our houses and cars in our names don't belong to us. And the management said, "Well, that's not quite true. There's really a company that handles everything." And Ozzy said, "Just tell me the truth. Do our houses and cars and our music belong to us?" And the father said, "Well, actually, no, they belong to us." And Ozzy had a bottle of scotch, which he's half drunk, and said, "You mother,"
Hmm.
and threw the bottle of scotch right at the father, missed him by a quarter of an inch and hit the back of the wall and smashed everywhere. And we all trooped out of that room. I mean, it was a very unpleasant situation. And unfortunately, they still are. Unfortunately, they don't own their first four records.
Oh, that's
We were able to get out of our deal. Uh,
mhm.
Capital Records financing our situation, but yeah, they were badly ripped off.
God bless Ozzy. I mean, not like I want to be a good dad role model. I don't want to condone throwing liquor bottles, but I can understand the
Oh,
frustration and
yeah,
anger. I get it. So Ozzy, rest in peace, buddy.
yeah,
Jesus. I
yeah.
appreciate you sharing that story. What about to make the pivot again to A&R and how did you find Bon Jovi? I mean, the Stones throw in New Jersey, here from New York. How did that I'm sure a story you probably told us several times. How did that come about?
Well, I'd heard the song "Runaway" on the radio, and I was introduced by an agent no, I'm sorry, an attorney, at the very same time as I heard that song on the radio, and he gave me this demo of four songs by a kid called Johnny Bon Jovi. Um, and I heard this track. It was on a sampler on WAPP, and I kept listening to it and hearing it, and I wondered who it was. And then, literally in that same week, this attorney came up and said this kid is putting a band together, and so I was interested, and I wanted to find out a little more. I met John, and he was just literally putting his band together, and he was he walked into my office, and I mean, he had IT. I mean, this
Mm,
is like something that you see every 5 years or every 10 years. Someone who has who has the charisma, who has everything going for them. But he was just starting out musically. Anyway, the bottom line is, I'd heard the demos, and he was putting this band together. I saw a couple of shows, and they were really good, but not great. And I sat down with him, before I did, I sat down with him, and I said, John, what is it that you want to be? I mean, number one, who is it? What band do you want to be like? So I don't want to be like anyone else. I want to be bigger than Elvis. And I looked at him, and I believed him.
mm,
He was absolutely focused on his intention of having his music and himself be as big as he became. So when he said that, I went to meet his parents, which is a crazy thing, and
mm.
and his mom and dad trusted me, but having been a musician, and I said, look, I will look after him. Carol, his mother, said, look after him, and I did, and basically saw him through the first couple of albums until the third album, where I introduced him to Desmond Child,
Mm.
and Desmond, worked with John and Richie, went to the studio in Vancouver with Bruce Fairbairn and Bob Rock, and 2.5 or 3 years after I signed him, Slippery When Wet came out, and Bon Jovi was the biggest artist in the world.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's undeniable. Desmond Child, I'm very fortunate to have had him on the podcast as well.
Oh,
And
really?
and while it's in my head, kind of almost like this, like a segue with my theme in GNR. And since you knew when he was Johnny Bon Jovi, and here's where I'm going with this is with the voice and aging. That's how we started out this conversation.
Uh-huh.
John Bon Jovi has been pretty open and I think pretty brave about how his voice is now. And a lot of people were talking about that with Axel. Obviously, on this podcast, I've talked about that.
Right.
You knowing John, helping him get signed from the beginning when his voice is at its peak till now. I mean, how do you look at something like that? I feel like it's so much perspective where we're in a society now where everything is on social media. You could focus in and say, this is wrong. They're not like how they used to be. I
Right.
don't, we're all, this is going to happen to all of us. So
Absolutely.
I don't want to jump on that train of hating on Bon Jovi or David Lee Roth or Axel or any of these people just for aging. How do you feel about that? And having known John basically since he got signed.
Well, what I would say, I mean, I don't, I think it's something that John, as you said, has been very public about. But um, I, for me, it's a little weird to talk about this, because I have to get back to the Gentle Giant era and why
Hmm.
it stopped, and why we would never reform. We had lots of offers to reform, to do tours for lots and lots of money. And one thing I would never do, and I don't think any of the band would like to be, is either a tribute band or legacy band, or a band that um, we try to get into size 30 waist when you're when you're in the your dad bod
Right.
situation, and become parodies of what you were, and that's something I feel a little odd about. It really hurts me to see artists trying to be who they were as when they were younger, and not being able to pull it off, and they should not try. I don't really, I don't know. I mean, I feel uncomfortable in watching John try to be what he was 30 odd years ago. But he said that now, which is good. He's public about it. But I've seen other artists, as you mentioned, a couple of others, and seeing some on YouTube that I won't even mention. It's embarrassing to me that they would present themselves in a way um, that is not how they used to be. And I don't know why they do it, honestly.
Mhm. I guess the question that I have with that, because my grandfather was not a musician; he was a pharmacist for 50 years, and he didn't want to retire. Like he just had to retire. Sometimes I feel that way about musicians, and obviously you can tell me better than me just projecting as a fan.
No,
You don't know, you don't want to retire. So is it just a matter of knowing your limitations and pivoting and seeing what works for you? Because I compare it sometimes to like an athlete that you're throwing fastballs one year and then you can't throw as fast. So you got to be, just change the way your approach to things. Or is it just, I hate this, fans call for retirement. I don't, why should you to retire if you still like doing it? But I don't know. That's how I feel. But I get what you're saying because a lot of fans feel that way. This
no,
is embar. So yeah,
I know I do.
that's my
Look,
jumbled question.
no, it's a good point, I certainly don't want to disrespect any band or any artist that needs to be on stage and needs to be that wants to continue to be a musician and a singer, but understanding their limitations, that's the point. And I couldn't do it. I mean, I wouldn't do it.
Mhm.
Because I look back and and I look back into what I've done, and that was what I did. It's not what I'm going to do. There are always things you can do, in the future. You don't have to be the same as you were 20 or 30 years ago. Um, so when I see, Axel, you mentioned Axel. I can mention 25 other
I
singers.
know.
It's not it's I don't know. I understand the need for perhaps making a living. I don't know. I mean, if that's the reason, I understand. If it's for a need to for attention to be or for relevance, that to me
Yeah.
is is sad, and I think that's really something I couldn't be and do. And I think as a musician and someone who was in a band that stopped a band and didn't reform, and I think our catalog and our music that we've made over the years still has relevance
Hmm.
because we didn't try to be someone else in the 80s and 90s and the thousands, and we stopped when we were at a height, and our music still retained its, I guess, relevance and legacy. I'm just I'm just spouting off here right now, and
No, I appreciate and respect this opinion, of course, because you've played, a success musician, and as you said, the Darth Vader side of things. So I respect your opinion because I don't want to be biased and just have look at life through Guns N' Roses colored glasses and just being like, oh, because they're my favorite. But I guess it's just I've been seeing videos of David Lee Roth recently, and it's just he looks like he's having fun, and you can see fans just being like showing a video of them like making fun of him. I'm just like, they still have a legacy. And so I guess that's why it bothers me. I understand what you're saying that you need to know when to either stop or change what you're doing or do something else. But I think this is a lot of fans are having too much fun at some of these
that's
legends'
it.
expense.
That's it. Yeah, that's true. You're right. I mean, to make fun of them is a whole different thing. That's not cool. But again, the artists themselves, they have to realize that they're not the same person, and
Fair.
and they're not the same person as they were 30 years ago. So, okay, have fun, but at least be self-deprecating at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the point that you should be. Look, I'm not the same as John. I mean, John has been open about, hey, listen, my voice is not working as it used to be. And I'm honest, I'm being honest with you. So that's what you're going to hear, or not. I mean, I don't think he's even touring right now.
I don't think so. I mean, I can only imagine how frustrating that is. But again, we can go on and on about this. But I want to ask because I want to keep you here forever. I don't know if any of this what we're talking about now parlayed into you helping AC/DC get back into the fold. Can you tell us that story? Because they weren't that they were kind of falling off at the time, and you helped them kind of get back
Oh,
into the scene. So if you can just talk about that a little bit, because obviously I'm a huge AC/DC fan as well.
me too, and that's why I I was running ATCO at the time, and they were signed to Atlantic, and Atlantic was going to drop them. Um, they said it's a big deal, and their previous two albums before I worked with them had really fallen off the map, and I said to the head of Atlantic, Doug Morris, don't drop them. I'll tell you what, I inherited a couple of bands, artists, should I say, and Stevie Nicks and Pete Townsend. And I said, look, I've got Stevie Nicks. I'll tell you what, I'll work with AC/DC. You can have Stevie Nicks. And so AC/DC apparently were very insular and didn't want anyone from the record company involved. They hated that piece of the business. They
Mm,
didn't let anyone in the studio, from what I heard. This is all the stuff that I heard about. However, I got a leg up from their elder brother, George, who was in the band called the Easy Beats, and had recorded them back in the day with Harry Vander. And he said to Malcolm and Angus, if it's the same Derek Shulman that was in Simon D. the Big Sound, then you could trust him. He's cool. He's a musician.
mm,
So I was let in the door to Malcolm Angus's world. And so they let me hear some of the demos and they're great. So I said, okay, we're going to get you to my favorite uh, producers in Vancouver, Bruce Fairbairn and Bob Rock. And we sent the demos over to them and they said, this is fantastic. And I said, do you want to produce this album? And they said, of course. So we went to Vancouver. I was in the studio with them for, throughout the whole time. And even though I was running a company. And at the end of the sessions, we had The Razor's Edge. And the first single came out and it was Thunderstruck.
mm.
And AC/DC was back.
Wow. I mean, just to come back with that. So, my God, your resume, man. I'm so glad you put this all down in a book because the back of your, hypothetical baseball card would just be too long. It would just be too long. All the stats. I know we kind of danced around the subject of Guns N' Roses a bit, and I told them to warn you. If I don't know if you have any what I call 6 degrees of GNR bacon, if you met any of the guys over your time or any saw them in concert. I just kind of what I do here in this instead of being our typical podcast, little GNR flavor. So I'm not sure if any connections you got.
Not really, actually. GNR,
Or
I,
what you thought about them, I guess maybe at the time because you were an A&R when Appetite came
oh,
out,
no,
right?
I was running ATCO, I think, at that time. And I thought they were great. I mean, I thought they obviously in LA they were a phenomenon. And but I was never a Sunset Strip kind of guy, to be honest with you.
That's fair.
That's the truth. I was in New York, and Bon Jovi I had Cinderella. I had bands from AC/DC. I was more Europe, East Coast.
Mm,
That's something that was interesting. And I was never the part of the strip, kind of thing. So Van Halen's I loved, but that wasn't my thing. It was other labels and other bands' things, and not mine. So I never really got involved in that world, even though there was one, when Great White was starting to make noise. I was thinking about signing them back in the day. I didn't because I think I was working with Bon Jovi and Cinderella both at the same time,
mm.
and I thought, man, I'm going to be overloaded. But I was never a Sunset Strip kind of guy, but I thought they were, they had an incredible run. Um, I personally, I was never a major fan, but I certainly understood that what they had in Axl and Slash and you know, was was huge, and they certainly made a big difference in the rock and roll world.
Right on. And obviously, being a New Yorker, I have no problem with you being an East Coast guy. I talk about bands in LA. I still have yet to go to the West Coast. So East Coast is my thing. And I finally made my first trip to the UK a couple years ago. I went to Abbey Road Studios, and
Where we,
my fun.
yeah, we recorded all our first band. My first band, every single was recorded at Abbey Road.
Wow, that's so cool. And my son, I'm sorry, you'll meet him next time. We had to get him out of here to go to the park because he was freaking out. But for his first birthday, we walked across Abbey Road. So that's why, I mean, again, your history, just to get some to talk to you a little bit, to hear some of your stories, I really appreciate it. And everybody can hear Giant and read Giant Steps, my improbable journey from stage lights to executive heights, coming out October 7th. Is there going to be audiobook? I didn't see any
Yeah,
information.
they will be coming, but not hasn't been put into action yet. But there will be one. Yeah,
And you'll be reading it?
apparently yes.
Okay. I look for you. I enjoy your voice. I know you joked around before. Nobody can understand you. I can understand. I understand other than our technical glitches, which I will edit out, and probably people have no idea what I'm talking about. I've understood every single word you said. So, uh,
Well,
Derek, just thank you so much for your time today, and I hope we get to do this again.
absolutely, it's been great. I
So
appreciate
that thank you. So that does it for this episode of Appetite for Distortion. When we see the next one, in the words of Axl Rose concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
Thanks to the lame ass security, I'm going home.